Hey guys, Tyler here, and this is the Garage Warrior podcast and video cast, and I'm super excited today to have on the call with me Dr. Charles Livingston. How's it going today, Charles?
Hey, it's awesome. How are you?
Doing good, man. Well, the first thing I got to say is you have about the most dignified name out of any guest I've ever had on the podcast.
Yes, ever since I was little, I always heard Dr. Livingston, I presume. So I guess it was destiny that I got my doctorate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I'm so happy to have you on the call because you're not the typical doc. You know what I mean? A lot of these doctors out there are living actually rather unhealthy lives, and they're not practicing anything what they preach. And as you know, a lot of them don't even really know a lot about nutrition and healthy living. They're not actually trained for that kind of stuff. What's your thoughts on the current medical kind of industry? I know we could have a whole podcast on that.
You could. Well, like I said, I view them as disease doctors. If you have a disease and you want to get rid of the symptoms, then, that's one way you can look. I'm trying to be politically correct here.
Sure.
Noticing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on the other hand, if you want to cure a disease, you have to look at the root problem. I don't think the current medical paradigm looks at curing the real issue. They are more about masking symptoms.
Yeah, it's like Band-Aids, right? You're just trying to put Band-Aids over everything. Yeah, well, you know what? Let's dig into your past a little bit, Charlie, just because I'm not sure anybody, on the call might not know who you are. So let's just give us like the 50,000-mile view. How'd you get to where you are today, and what are you hoping to teach the world?
Okay, well, I've always been interested in being a healer of some type, right? So I looked at the medical model. I looked at, ever since I was young, I've always been interested in that type of thing. So I went to the medical doctor, shadowed him for a while and asked him health questions and realized that they were not giving me good answers. And the answers that they did give me didn't really make sense to me at the time. Looking back at it, I can see now why, just because I have a totally different paradigm than they had.
Sure.
Even at that age, just because I was always reading health and exercise and weight loss. That's what I did for fun, was read weight loss books and health books when I was in like 6th grade all the way up through high school through college.
That young? In 6th grade, this was interested. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I came to the realization early. I'm short, right? I'm like 5'7.5", 5'8", somewhere around there. And being Asian, I have a small frame, so I realized that at an early age, if I ever wanted to get girls, that the only, girls like tall, handsome guys, that wasn't going to be me. So I had to grow out. So I learned a lot about health and bodybuilding and nutrition. So by my senior year, I was able to pack on like 20 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
In that last year, just through my research and just following what successful people did. And
sure.
So that kind of got me started. And then because my entire family was overweight, I started doing a lot of research on weight loss.
Sure.
Because they go hand in hand, bodybuilding and weight loss. I mean, those guys, as you know, they're down to like 3% body fat.
Right.
To get that shredded, you have to know how to drop weight. So just knowing that, and then a lot of the top health professionals in the field studying what they wrote about diets, I learned a lot myself. And then, I probably around my 8th grade year of high school, I shadowed a chiropractor, and, we totally synced up. I totally got what they were trying to teach me. Their viewpoint of health was very holistic, and I totally fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And so that was my path ever since then. And I went to chiropractic school after getting my undergrad in pre-med in biology, and the rest was history. I studied a lot of nutrition while I was there. I practiced for 5 years and decided that I got tired of a lot of the politics with insurance companies and the medical profession, and just there's a lot of things. I feel sorry for doctors today just because of the Obamacare and all the garbage they have to go through right now. Not just chiropractors, which they're totally getting the short end of the stick, but also medical doctors and physical therapists. A lot of these healthcare practitioners are really, really struggling with this new paradigm model, just because all these insurance companies don't want to pay, and it's a nightmare. Anyway, I'm not going to go on and bore everybody.
No, I completely agree.
It's a nightmare. So I decided, I've got a good exit strategy. I got out and just started writing books, and kind of led me to where I am today.
That's fantastic, man. That's quite a story. I really like how you went the professional route for a little while and actually, you know, paid your dues. A lot of the people in the fitness industry don't necessarily have as many credentials as you, so it's good to get someone like yourself on the call and get your perspective on stuff. I'd like to talk a little bit about your kind of version of exercise coming from someone who studied the spine for a long time. What do you see works the best for people when it comes to both fat loss and both muscle building?
The best stuff for fat loss and muscle building are going to be movements that require lots of joints.
Muscles. Lots of muscles.
Lots of, yes, big compound movements. Right. So things like squats, things like burpees, things like, you know, all those type of, you know, multi-joint movements.
Sure.
And multi-muscle patterns. Those are going to give you your best bang for your buck, because it's just, all of them is just stimulate all kinds of mitochondria in your muscle cells and just boosting your metabolism, and just gives you that afterburn effect of just really, really burning off fat.
Yeah. I'm interested from somebody who studied the spine for a long time. I'm a huge advocate of mobility training, of flexibility training, in addition to strength training. One of my favorite exercises to teach people is the gymnastic bridge or the yoga bridge. Right? And this is a very controversial subject when it comes to spine health. I'm interested in what your take is on slowly progressing someone to like a bridge. Is that healthy for the spine? Is that something that's potentially detrimental to the spine? What's your take on that?
I think everything in moderation. I think that's good because it builds a good core, and I think your core is the most important thing that you can build for your body.
Absolutely.
Just because nowadays everybody sits so much,
right.
And sitting for your spine, as you know, is like Coca-Cola for your teeth. It just rots your spine. But with that being said, you know, it's so important to do core movements like the bridge. It's, you know, you can overdo it. I mean, you look at people in like gymnastics and jiu-jitsu who just torn their bodies apart.
Right.
Those are extremists, you know. For the normal average person, doing some bridges isn't going to hurt you.
Right. So it's just like a physical therapy thing. I hear so many physical therapists talk about flexion and extension of the spine causing disc degeneration. They quote Stu McGill and all these people. And then we find out that those were done on cadaver parts, not on real living parts and stuff.
Exactly. That's why you can't. That's the one problem I do have with research, because with research, you can ask. It depends on what question you ask that will get you an answer.
Right.
So this is why I love research. I think there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of it, but for me, it's not the end all be all, because the body is very dynamic. It's very movable, very biological. There's more than 3 dimensions to it.
Right.
There's so many different, you know, you've got so many different aspects to the body that is can't be measured, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
I get what you're saying.
Realm, you've got your whole energetic realm. There's so many other different layers that we don't even know about and we can't even measure.
Right.
So when you just look at research, you're leaving out a part. So you got to realize and take a step back and look at it for what it is, and realize, you know, doing a study on a cadaver, yeah, you can get some indication, but yeah, I mean, your body's so dynamic that something like that you can't say that.
Yeah, you can't say something definitive with research. Like, I know it's challenging. It's really challenging. One of the things I like to say is the older I get, the more I realize the less that I know, right? Because when I first started this, I was so convinced that everything I was doing was perfect. And as I get older and I realize and I learn more, you're so right when it comes to this advanced system. That's why I could tell you were pausing for a second, because you're like, you know, like, hey, there is so much going on. There's the spine, there's the nervous system, there's the muscles, there's your brain, there's your willpower, there's energy, there's all these things that we don't even know and we don't even understand yet. And so how do you, as a healthcare practitioner, put this stuff together? Like, what's your strategy? If you have a client come in the door and they're just a standard American, fat, sick, and nearly dead, where's the place you start, and kind of what's your strategy to kind of start working them towards this holistic route of health?
When you break it down, health is very, very easy. You do 2 things. You create purity and you remove toxicity. Whatever you do, whether it's exercise, whether it's diet, whether it's supplementation, whatever it is, all these things come down to creating a purity in the body in an area that's toxic, or providing a sufficiency to an area that's deficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's about as simple as it gets, right?
So when I look at somebody, I'm looking at what do they need? If they're deficient in exercise, I give them exercise. If they are deficient in vitamin C, I give them vitamin C. If they're deficient, there's all kinds of things that you can go, and then there's bigger patterns you can look at, like, spinal health, for one. I mean, that directly affects your nervous system. 99.9% of the population nowadays has issues with that just because they sit all the time.
Right.
You destroy your postural muscles, it's going to start bleeding into, damaging nerves, and from there, your nerves control your entire body, so it can affect other organs and tissues and cells in the body.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So you just look at kind of the whole body perspective, and you kind of look at what is the number one thing that you could fix right now that is toxic to this person, and then you just kind of inject the antidote, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, that's you start with the biggest thing you can affect, and then you just step by step. You don't want to overwhelm somebody, and I try not to do that. I mean, there's so much you can do.
Oh, it's so easy to overwhelm people. It's ridiculous.
And honestly, it's one of those things where, for me, it's like a bunch of little things add up to one big thing.
Right.
So if you're changing all these little things, like I hear this all the time from people. Oh, this doesn't matter. I can eat, white bread. I can eat, I can have as much sugar as I want. It's not doing anything to me now. Well, the problem is they're not looking at the threshold of the body. And you've got a certain threshold of toxicity before your body finally says, hey, I've had enough. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you start to get this cascade of symptoms because of all this buildup. And so it's not that one thing that you're doing right now. It's that one thing that you're doing right now that you've been doing for a long time. And then all of a sudden you hit a point. It's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, right?
Right. Everything
one
comes
little
crumbling down.
And then, boom, the whole system collapses, and you start getting a cascade of, symptoms, which we call a group of symptoms as what? It's a disease, right? Condition. So diabetes, it's a bunch of symptoms that they lump together to create the condition of diabetes.
Yeah. That's terrible that we take something like you're saying, just this this dis-ease, this lack of the body being in its central state, and it's a healthy state, and we just turn it into something that's a condition, rather than saying this is a problem that is universal to the entire body. I'm interested in what you look at, like what you would look at first, because you mentioned spine health, you mentioned some nutrition, exercise. Like if somebody comes in the door, do you have like a checklist that you'll start with, like what the number one thing? I know it's hard, you probably advanced enough that you kind of just know what to look for first depending on the person. But if somebody's at home, what's their personal checklist?